Ladies and gentlemen, I know I just kind of fried your brain with texts and they are pretty confusing once you get to the animator section. So let's go with something very simple. Today we're going to be explaining how you can use the solids function. Now the solids function just creates a solid inside of After Effects. Now there is a difference between a solid and a shape inside of After Effects, and I will be explaining those in the second course. But for now, what is a solid? A solid is basically just a block or a page, whatever you want to call it, of a solid color. That's literally all that it is. How do we add it and how do we use it? You guys are going to be learning that later on. But how do we add it? That's for today. So let's go ahead and dive right into After Effects. Inside of my After Effects folder, I've still got my same text which we created in the last episode that broke half of your brains, but that's okay. How do we add a solid? Just as we did with the text, all we have to do is go down to our project panel and right click and click on new, and we're going to be able to add a bunch of things. Now, if I click on new solid, I'm going to have this big window pop in first of all, and that's going to change the settings of my solid, okay? Now this solid that I'm about to add is at a width of 1080 pixels and 1920 height, okay? Whenever you're adding in a solid inside of After Effects, it's going to automatically set the dimensions to the dimensions of your composition, but you can always change that. The units you're using here are pixels and the pixel aspect ratio is square. You don't need to worry too much about this. You can always click on make composition size if you want to make the solid into your composition size. So let's say I change this and I messed around, I don't know how to go back. I can click on make comp size. That's going to make it the composition size. One other thing you can change about the solid is the actual color. We're going to go with a white color for the sake of this tutorial. You can also preview it as well. That's in other sections, but you don't need to worry too much about this right now. Let's click on OK, and there we go. We have another layer added. So now you've got your raw footage, you've got your text, and you've got your white solid. Now the reason you can't see any of them is because obviously the white solid is on top of all of them. The white solid gets added as a red layer, and this red layer, it kind of looks the same like a text layer, but it has way different properties. The thing about the solid is inside the properties panel, you can see the basic transform functions. You can see the position, you can see the scale, you can see the rotation, and you can see the opacity, and those are all the basic transform functions of a solid. That's pretty much everything that there is to a solid. It is basically just a page. If we click on this drop down menu, we just have the transform functions. There's nothing else, and that's all we could do. There's no plus, there's no animate functions, there's no complex things. How do we use solids inside of After Effects? We mainly use solids whenever we want to make a background. So if I wanted to make a very cool background, I can actually double click on this and open it up in a separate layer box, but that's not what we need. I believe you can right click on it and change the solid properties, or I believe there was a way to do that. Forgot how to do that. Either way, let's say I wanted to add in a black background. Instead of doing it like Premiere Pro where we draw out the shape, we can actually right click and add in a new solid, and it's going to make it the composition size, and I can set it to, let's say, a dark gray background. And there we go, we have a dark gray solid. And if I wanted this as a background, I'd put it behind our text like this. Now, adding in solids inside of After Effects is very simple. We mainly use them as backgrounds, and the main way we use them is just like text. We add them and then we add effects on them. That's how we make anything inside of After Effects look very special. Now for text, we are going to be covering that later on. For solids, we're going to have so many courses where I break down how to make high quality backgrounds for you guys, but this is level 1. So this is a level 1 background inside of After Effects. You just add the solid with its color and that's it. A level 2 background or a level 10 background, whatever you want to call it, is when you add in a solid like this and then you add in effects on top of it. Some of the effects we're going to be adding are gradients. Some other effects we're going to be adding are vignettes. Some other cool effects we're going to be adding are like dots, right? We've got so much that we're going to be adding inside of these. We're mainly going to be using solids for background. So when you think of text, just think of subtitles. When you think of solids, just think of backgrounds. That's all we're ever going to be using them for. So when it comes to a solid, that's how you add a solid inside of After Effects. It's nice and simple. There's not much you can change. You could just change the transform, or you could change its color, and that's kind of how it goes with solids. They're very, very simple. So this being said, you now understand how to add in 2 functions inside of After Effects. You now understand how to add in text and the fact that we use them inside of subtitles, and that there's 3 ways to stylize them. You've got the properties panel, you've got the effects, and you've got the animator. We're going to be covering the animator later on. We're going to be covering the effects later on. For now, just know the properties panel, which is the same one from Premiere Pro. And now you understand how you can add in solids. With solids, you understand there's 2 ways to stylize them. Number 1, you use the properties panel, which is nice and simple. And number 2 is you add in effects. Once again, we're going to be covering all the effects later on in a different course. But with that being said, that basically covers everything there is for solids. Now, this being said, our next course, we're going to cover the better functions. We have a few functions as we mentioned before. We've got our text, we've got our solids, we've got our shape layers, and we've got our adjustment layers. We also have some more 3D functions, which we'll cover later on. But for now, we've covered text and solids. Now we're going to move into our third one, which is a really good one, and it is the shape layer. The shape layer function allows you guys to add in shapes inside of After Effects, which we're going to be talking about in a separate course because we're going to be using it so much, okay? This being said, now you guys understand text is used for subtitles, solids are used for backgrounds, how you can add them inside of After Effects. Let's go ahead and dive into shape layers in the next episode. I'll see you guys there.